Hello everyone. Today, we'll be seeing how fast Aegislash can beat Pokemon X in a solo run challenge. Let's get into this video for Daily December. This Pokemon has actually been requested quite a lot, especially by one of my own channel moderators. His name is Dominic, at least that's what I call him now. He changes his username quite a lot, but he's been requesting I do Aegislash for a while, and I told him, you know what, I'll do this just for you. And looking at this thing's stats, it's going to be quite an interesting run, especially with how its ability works. In our default shield form, we have 60 HP, 50 attack and special attack, 150 defense and special defense, and 60 speed. We're also in the medium fast level up group, so leveling up shouldn't be too bad. And we have the ability called Stance Change. Whenever I use an attacking move, I switch to my attack form, and when you switch to the attack form, the defenses and the attack stats swap with each other. And I switch back to my defense form whenever I use the move King's Shield. Although, I would like to be in my attack form for a good chunk of the run, so I will most likely not use that move too much, if at all. And if you take a look at our level up moveset, we get like 30,000 level 1 moves because Doublade evolves into Aegislash with a Dusk Stone. But our moves that we have access to are Swords Dance, Aerial Ace, King's Shield, and Sacred Sword, because those are the final 4 moves of its level 1 moveset. We do unfortunately miss out on some great moves like Shadow Sneak and Night Slash or Iron Head, but we can get those later. But right now, having Swords Dance, Aerial Ace, and Sacred Sword is going to be some quite devastating damage. And we're also using Hidden Power Dark, which essentially just means perfect stats, no need for Hidden Power. And we're using the Jolly Nature, which is plus speed minus special attack. We're not really going to be using our special attack, it's going to be all physical from here. And funnily enough, our TM set is almost as long as our level up moveset. We really don't get that many TMs, but some of the great ones we get are Aerial Ace and Shadow Claw and Rock Slide. Anyway, with all the moveset stuff out of the way, the early game for all X and Y runs essentially play quite similar, and after we head through the forest, we can make our way to Santaloon City and go take on the first gym leader, Viola. Viola leads off with her Surskit. I'm only level 9 because I really didn't do much training, but once I use one Swords Dance while in defense form, I don't take much damage, and then as soon as I change forms, I can use another Swords Dance on the Vivillon, not take much damage, and then as soon as I use Aerial Ace, I change forms and one-shot it. Okay, I actually kind of like this thing so far. I do expect great things from it, because after all, Steel and Ghost is quite a great typing, although not as good as it once was. Because if this was Generation 5, I would only take neutral damage from Ghost and Dark moves, but sadly, since this is Gen 6, we'll be weak to those typings, but Swords Dance is still quite good. We're also still quite a long ways from fighting our second gym leader, because for some reason in this game, the gap from Gym 1 to Gym 2 is quite massive. But once I reach Lumio City, I can take out Professor Sycamore very easily, none of his Kanto starters provide a problem, and then I just pick a random starter. Then I can leave Lumio City, enter Route 5, and accidentally fight these twins right here. This is a strat I keep forgetting to do. When I heal at the center in Lumios, I need to deposit my Pidgey and whatever Pokemon I caught, as well as the Kanto starter, so that way I can skip this battle, because early game, Plusle and Minun are quite bulky. I should know this. I did Plusle earlier in the month, and then Minun will be done later in the month. I can also do some optional training here and there because medium fast is still not going to level up the best, so fighting occasional trainers wouldn't really hurt anything. And then as soon as I get to the Parfum Palace, you can actually pick up an Ether right here just off to the side, and then in the back garden, I can go ahead and get the HM for Cut. Cut really isn't a needed HM, although if you want the leftovers, you're going to have to get it. And it's not really that out of the way either. And not only that, I can also talk to this water fountain right here and actually get myself a rare candy. X and Y really don't have that many rare candies. I can then get the Pokeflute, run away from the Snorlax like a little bitch, and then I can eventually make my way all the way to Ambra Town. Behind the Pokemon Center right here, technically on Route 8, I can actually get myself a Heart Scale, because I will use this once I get to the move relearner a little bit later in the game, so that way I can get another great move. I'm thinking Shadow Sneak, or probably Iron Head. And while I'm going through the glittering cave right here, I can actually get the TM for Shadow Claw. This is going to be a very great move for me. Way better than anything like Shadow Ball. Probably better than Shadow Sneak, but I might use the Heart Scale for Iron Head at least, because I still don't have a great Steel move. And no, I don't count King's Shield as a Steel move. And by the way, guys, I took the job. Then as soon as I get out of the cave and go down to Route 8, I can get a rare candy along the beach, get the dowsing machine, as well as fight a bunch of the trainers in the area. Fisherman Warden is actually pretty good training. He has 3 level 19 Tentacool. And I don't know why, but Tentacool gives surprisingly good XP. Then, inside Solage City, I can go buy some Repels and Paralyze Heals, get myself the bike, and go enter Grant's gym. I am still worried about Grant's gym, even though I resist rock moves, because some of these Pokemon are actually quite tough. Some of them have Sturdy. The Relicanth here likes to use Yawn and Rock Tomb, lowering my speed. Fortunately, I do beat the first Rising Star trainer, but there is another trainer I'm worried about, and that is this Rising Star with Solrock and Lunatone. These two have Psywave that is 100% accurate, and I have had this person provide a struggle for many Pokemon, but I did forget, oh wait, I have Shadow Claw. I can just one-shot them both. Oh well. And then next up is a hiker named Bernard. I do get paralyzed during the fight, but fortunately I win the fight with half health. Now, we need to fight the main guy in this gym, Grant. Grant leads off with a Mora. I am really upset I do not have a Steel move right now. I go ahead and use a turn 1 Swords Dance, and surprisingly it goes for Takedown instead of something like Thunder Wave. I'm actually kind of surprised. I get to level 23, and then Sacred Sword one-shots both of them. Okay, yeah, Grant really threw the fight there. Because if I was paralyzed, his Tyrant would have had a chance to use Bite on me, and it would have hurt really bad thanks to Strong Jaws. But hey, I'll take it. Then I can make my way up to Geosenge Town, take care of the 2 Lucarios without any issue, and then enter the Reflection Cave. The Reflection Cave has some very hard NPC trainers at this point in the run, because half of them have fully evolved Pokemon, and there's one person named Battle Girl Hedvig. She has a Throw and a Hawlucha, and I honestly think she's one of the top 5 hardest NPC trainers of all time. Even if you have a move that they're weak to, like Psychic moves, she can still be a problem. Right here, I even save before I fight her, even though I'm immune to fighting. I'm just that worried. And because of that, I decide to just skip this trainer and move on. Although, I do get another reset right afterwards to an ace trainer named Montique, I think her name is called. But yeah, she gave me a reset on her Grand Bowl. Dude, see, this place is hard. Fortunately, I don't have any other problems, and then I can enter the Tower of Mastery, and funnily enough, this is my very first rival battle against Calum, so yeah, this is technically Rival 1. He leads off with Meowstic. I go ahead and use 2 Swords Dances, 3 Swords Dances, and then I go for Sacred Sword. I almost went Shadow Claw, but then I remembered that thing is part Normal type. At least that's what I thought, and that's the reason I went Sacred Sword, but I did just look at it, and no, it's pure Psychic. I don't know what I'm thinking of, something that's normal Psychic. Probably Girafarig, or something similar. I could have swore there's something in the newer games that's that typing. Anyway, let's not think about that. We need to go take on Karina, the fighting type specialist. This gym is probably going to be the easiest gym in the entire run. I remember as a kid, I had a Honage on my team that I caught on that route going to the Parfum Palace, and Honage can only get hit by 1 move on her entire team. Let me show off the fight. She leads off with Mienfoo. She can't go for anything like Fake Out or a fighting type move because her Mienfoo can't hit me. Then on her Machoke, the only move Machoke has that can hit me is Rock Tomb. And then with that gone, the Hawlucha can't do anything to me either. So yeah, she ended up being the easiest gym of all time. Then I can get some free goodies. I get myself the Lucario, the HM for Surf, as well as a Lapras. Then I can use Cut on this tree to get the leftovers. And then when I enter Coumarine City, I can go to this little dock right here and get myself an Elixir. And the rival fight in front of the gym would have been very easy, but you're not going to believe what happened. I used 2 Swords Dances, and then as soon as I was done setting up, I got hit with Psybeam for a 10% confuse, and then I tried to hit and I changed forms, I hit myself, and hitting myself with 50 base defense with 4 sword stances one-shot myself from half health. And it made it pretty awkward that I had to try and black out with a Lucario that was higher level than some of his Pokemon. But I do fortunately end up getting a blackout, and I have to go all the way back there. Dude, that was just not fair. I do beat him on the second try without any problems though, and with the rival defeated, we can go take on the 4th gym leader, Ramos. Ramos leads off with Jump Left. I go ahead and use some Swords Dances, and once I get around +4, I can one-shot his entire team with Aegislash. Next up is the first major Team Flare section at the Kalos power plant. I'm trying to fight the grunt that you have to fight in order to get access to the place, the one who tells you about the card key that he dropped. On his Golbat, I got hit with Confuse Ray, and then I hit myself 3 times in a row, and I didn't have any Swords Dances up either. I did not expect to get a loss there because hitting myself 3 times in a row is so ridiculously unlucky. And because of that, I have to reset all the way back to Ramos. So yep, I get to fight this guy again. You're not going to believe this either. When I get back to that Flare Grunt, I just assume it's a fluke, and I go back in without saving because I'm that stubborn. And I hit myself 2 times in a row, and when I do manage to hit it with Shadow Claw, I didn't set up any Swords Dances on the Houndoom because I didn't want to get one-shot with Flamethrower, and it ended up living, and I died. Oh my god! And then guess what? On the 3rd try, I did finally save in front of him, and I never hit myself once. Fuck this game. I don't really have any other major issues while clearing out the power plant. I do get an occasional reset on someone with a Golbat from Confused Luck, but other than that, it went pretty fine. I feel like that's just the theme for this thing. This thing hates confusion. Then inside Lumio City, I can go ahead and take on the Electric-type gym leader Clement. I am a little worried about this fight, because I know Thunderbolt's going to do a lot of damage, but maybe it won't be that bad. Clement leads off with his Emolga. I go ahead and use a Swords Dance because I know he's going to use a Volt Switch. Then on the Magneton, I can stance change and use Sacred Sword, and since I outspeed the Magneton, it essentially gets him stuck in a heal loop, which draws out the timer for Electric Terrain. And the problem is, with the Electric Terrain, Thunderbolt from the Heliolisk gets a 50% boost, but surprisingly I do survive it. But I don't survive the Volt Switch from the Emolga. Great. On the next attempt, I actually decided to use 3 of my rare candies to go from level 41 to level 44. And as soon as I did that, I was actually able to barely outspeed the Emolga, and I didn't have to worry about it. Then, as soon as I leave Clement's gym and leave Lumio City, I have to do what I think is one of the hardest rival fights in the entire game. It's the fight with your rival on Route 14, because this fight, he has a fully evolved Delphox. But first off, though, like usual, he leads off with Meowstic. I go ahead and use 1 Swords Dance, 2 Swords Dances, and I decide that's enough. I go for Sacred Sword because I seem to forget that that thing's not part normal type, and then on the Delphox, it outspeeds and one-shots me with Mystical Fire. So that's how we're gonna do this, eh? On the next attempt, though, he really threw the fight. Instead of using Mystical Fire, he used Psybeam on me, and I was able to win because of it. I think maybe he didn't detect a one-shot and just went for a weaker move, but still, at least I won. And with that hard rival fight cleared, I can make my way to Lavere City and go purchase some vitamins at the Pokemon Center. And today's vitamin of the day is 3 protein, 3 carbos, 5 HP ups, 5 zincs, and 2 irons. We're essentially having a well-balanced diet right here. Pretty much everything except calcium. I want a bunch of attack, I want speed, I want defenses, I pretty much want everything that isn't special attack, which is the reason I went with the Jolly Nature. Anyway, I think we're gonna have a great time here at the Fairy type gym. Even though we don't have access to Ironhead yet, because the move reminder is inside Dendamil Town, which is after I beat this gym. So I'm not gonna have Ironhead, but Steel still resists Fairy. So I think this will be a piece of cake. Let's go take on Valerie. I set up 2 Swords Dances on the Mawile she leads with, and then I can defeat it with 1 use of Sacred Sword, and then I can one-shot the Mr. Mime with Shadow Claw, and then defeat the Sylveon as well with the same move. Yep, pretty easy gym. Nothing major at all happens at the Pokeball factory, and then as soon as I finish this, I notice I am now at max friendship, so I go back to Coumarine City and go get the Lucky Egg. It's not going to help too much, but it's still going to be great to have. Also, as of recording this voiceover, I had played the Klefki livestream earlier in the week, and if you give a fast level up Pokemon access to the Lucky Egg, that thing can basically almost get to level 100 by the Elite Four. I'm not even kidding. It's quite broken. Before I do anything in Dendemil Town, I actually get the 2 rare candies that are on this route right here. I can get one after cutting down a tree, and then there's a rare candy on the opposite side of the route that requires me to fight some trainers. It's generally pretty out of the way, but I just wanted to get it just to be safe. Then as soon as I get into Dendemil Town, I should be going to the move relearner to get Iron Head, but I guess I either forgot or I don't need Iron Head until later, because I go all the way to the cavern right here. I think it's called the Frost Cavern. I don't know, I do so many games with ice locations, I get them all mixed up all the time. I do have a blackout there, but the rest of the cave goes pretty well after that, and then I can make my way to Anastar City and go fight the rival again. I still have Return, Sacred Sword, and Shadow Claw on the moveset right now, and surprisingly enough, his Delphox doesn't give me any problems. And now, we need to go take on the 7th gym leader, Olympia. She leads off with Sigilyph. I use 1 Swords Dance as it sets up Reflect. And this would be a great fight where I could have Brick Break, but it's fine though. Even without Brick Break, I can just use Shadow Claw to one-shot her entire team. Even the Slowking. And look at that, I used Shadow Claw on the Meowstic. I guess it was at that point I finally realized Meowstic is not part normal type, so I actually just used Shadow Claw on it just fine. And then after this, I get that dreaded phone call. Well, not like a phone, but I don't know what they call this thing. Anyway, we gotta go take out a bunch of Team Flare Grunts here. Having access to the Lucky Egg though at this point, with almost every Grunt and every Lysander fight having fully evolved Pokemon, is gonna allow me to level up quite nicely. I have no resets or blackouts in Part 1 of the Team Flare side quest in Lumio City, and then inside Part 2 in Geosenge Town, I have no resets or blackouts there either. And you wanna know how much experience I had gotten? By the time I beat Olympia, I was level 54, and when I defeat the final Lysander fight, I became level 64. So yeah, I have 10 levels gained in this section. Quite a lot of levels, and it should make us more than well enough prepared for the next gym fight, but it's not really the gym fight that's going to be hard, it's the gauntlet of 3 rival battles, because you have to start off with Shauna, then you have to go Tierno, and then Dexio, and if you lose to any one of them, even if you black out, you gotta fight all 3 of them all over again. However though, with having access to Swords Dance plus Steel Ghost being quite great defensively, I actually don't have any problems with any of them, although I do get close on Tierno just because he always seems to paralyze me. And then after that, inside Wulfric's gym, I still don't have Iron Head, but Sacred Sword will prove enough for this fight. He leads off with a Abomasnow. I use 1 Swords Dance as he gets off a very weak Ice Beam, and after the +1 with Swords Dance, I can one-shot it with Sacred Sword, the Avalugg, as well as the Cryogonal. I mean, any physical move knocks out Cryogonal. Its defense is pure dog crap. But anyway, that is all 8 gym leaders defeated. We are so close to the end of the game. However though, this game has a very difficult victory road gauntlet. A lot of the trainers are very good. You have the hardest rival fight here, and at the very end you have to fight a bunch of veteran trainers, and I swear the veterans are actually harder than the champion. But you may or may not believe it. I certainly didn't believe it rewatching this doing the voiceover months later. I didn't have a reset at the rival fight. I didn't have a reset or blackout to any of the trainers in here. I basically first tried everybody. Yeah, okay. This is a really great Pokemon so far. even though, funnily enough, you're meant to utilize both its attack and defense forms, but you can just stick to the attack form most of the time. Although I will say, having the defense form turn 1 when using a Sword Stance to not take much damage is quite nice. Anyway, we are now at the Pokemon League. I go ahead and heal at the center, buy some full restores, and now we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four I fight is Wickstrom, and he leads with Klefki. I go ahead and just use one Sword Stance and then defeat it with Sacred Sword. Very fortunately for me, his Klefki did not get off a Prankster Torment, preventing me from not using the same move over and over again. And although I get that, the Probopass is still very annoying with Sturdy. But once I defeat it, the Scizor goes down, as then the Aegislash can go down to Shadow Claw. Next up is the Dragon-type Elite Four member, Drosna. Drosna leads off with her Dragalge. I use one Sword Stance, 2 Sword Stance, 3 Sword Stances, and that may have been way too many Sword Stances. I think 1 would have been enough. But I can just use Return to defeat everything. Although the Noibat does outspeed me, and it does get off quite a lot of damage. Next up is the Water-type Elite Four member, Cybold. Cybold leads off with Clawitzer. I use one Sword Stance, and I don't want to do any more than that. The Clawitzer with Mega Launcher is pretty scary. Then his Gyarados comes out, uses Intimidate to get my attack from +2 to +1, but that doesn't matter though. I can just Shadow Claw his remaining Pokemon for one-shots. Next up is the Fire-type Elite Four member, Malva. This one I'm quite worried about. Malva leads off with her Pyroar. I go for Sacred Sword right away and just get rid of it, no setup necessary. Then on the Talonflame, it does outspeed and go for Flare Blitz, doing very massive damage, and I barely survive. I needed this high of a level just to prepare for it, but unfortunately, what I didn't prepare for was I actually wouldn't one-shot the Torkoal because of a lack of Sword Stance, and it defeats me with Earthquake, giving me my very first reset in the Pokemon League. On my second attempt at beating her, I do try to go for a Sword Stance on the Pyroar, and it just uses a turn 1 Noble Roar. However though, when you combine that with Sword Stance, it gives me only +1 attack, and even +1 is not enough for that Torkoal. Hopefully, third try is the charm. I actually do equip a Fist Plate before this fight, boosting the power of my Sacred Sword by 20%. And I'm just hoping this'll let Sacred Sword defeat the Torkoal, and it does. Alright, we are good from here. Now, we need to go defeat Diantha. Let's go ahead and finish this run. Diantha leads off with Hawlucha. I now have leftovers for this fight, and we both set up Sword Stances at the same time. But here's the thing though, her Hawlucha cannot do jack to me. And then once I change forms, she knows she's screwed. I can one-shot the Hawlucha with Sacred Sword, and then same with the Goodra, the Tyrantrum, and then on the Gourgeist, I gotta pay attention, use Shadow Claw on it. And then on the Aurorus, I can switch back to Sacred Sword, and then on the Gardevoir, I use Return on it for the one-shot, even though I could've just Shadow Clawed, but oh well, a run is still a run, and the results are now clocked in, with a real time of 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 35 seconds. With 12 resets and 2 blackouts at level 82, with a game time after the credits, because that's the first instance where I can actually see my game time, of 6 hours and 18 minutes. Okay, yeah, this Pokemon did incredibly well. Even though it has a very huge problem with hitting itself in confusion after changing forms, especially after using a Sword Stance, This thing hurts really bad and it could really benefit from person berries, but berries are very hard to come by in X and Y, so I kinda just had to make do with just luck, and clearly the luck did not work out much for me. And in this run, I never ended up getting Ironhead. I guess I got that heart scale thinking I would need it, and I did this whole voiceover thinking I would go teach it. But now that I think about it, with fighting and Ghost, you have neutral coverage against everything in the entire game, plus having Return as a backup is quite nice too. So yeah, honestly, I didn't really need that heart scale either, although it definitely feels weird never once using a steel move. But anyway, if we take a look at the leaderboard, this thing's definitely placing near the top. This thing actually did quite well. It actually did better than Klefki, another steel type, and that thing was in the fast group. I got level 100 for that thing, and I only used like 4 rare candies. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, especially you, Dominic. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the backcourt Pokemon we do on stream. And this is just the start of Daily December. We have now done 1 week so far, including the fact we had to do Cradily and Plusle in November because, I don't know, with the amount of games I do, I kind of needed a couple more days. But anyway, next week, we're going to be starting off the series on Sunday with Pokemon Platinum with Mime Jr. Fun fact, I did try to do a Mime Jr. run way over a year ago. I got as far as routing it, and I actually did a playthrough, but it was at a point where I quit making videos, so I ended up scrapping the footage. But this run is sure something, you're going to want to see it. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video for Daily December.